Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Tuesday Night Music Show. We have the panel here as usual. One person on the panel we have in particular is Boston John, who is kind enough to bring us, as always, the record roundup. Boston John.
Does he have a nickname?
Kind of thirsty.
Does he have a nickname?
You're thirsty.
Is he known as anything else besides Boston John?
There's something else.
I don't know.
Howie might
Starts with an R?
This one.
Street cat or something? Does it go? Something along that line? Or
I don't know what you're talking about.
Avenue Ferrets. What'd somebody say?
The road dog.
Yeah, there you go.
Thank you.
Yes.
All right.
Oh, you just want to drink. That's all.
That's it. Yeah.
Tuesday. What else is there to do?
This is not Monday. It's Tuesday.
But before we go to our album, Brian,
Let's say hi to everybody.
is there anyone else you want to say hi to?
Not really. No.
You don't want to mention anything?
Okay, fine. Jay's with us. Look at you. Here.
No.
In Temecula, California, we have Eric here from New Hampshire. We have Matt from Georgia and Howie from New Jersey. And as always, this show is brought to you by DJEventPlanner.com, www.djeventplanner.com.
There we go.
Now, can we
It's all about
please do the record
structure.
roundup?
It's all
Can
about
we please
structure.
do the record roundup?
We can please do the record roundup.
What took you so long?
It's the
Hey,
Peanut Gallery.
the peanut gallery is here tonight.
Helping me out, yeah.
Yes. No.
Well, I got to thinking after yesterday's show with it being Jimmy's birthday and everything. What was some of the earliest stuff I remember from street music of New York, 83, 84? What was the first breakdancey stuff that came onto my radar? So I dug up these two, which is still stamped with my original Cosmo C DJ Incorporated, which I was going to be before Hot Tunes came along. I found for us
Oh my gosh, one of my favorite records.
Into Battle, Art of Noise. That was
Yes.
83, followed up by
Yes.
the Art of Noise, just so you could get both versions of Beatbox.
Yes. Diversion 1 and Diversion 2. I'm a Diversion 2 guy.
They're both good.
I'm a Diversion 2 guy. I like it when they jump right into the horn steps right after the first chorus.
And speaking
Right
of horn,
after the first-
Trevor Horn. This is Trevor Horn's
Trevor
baby
Horn.
out of Britain. Close to the Edit was on this, which was another monster breakdance jam from back in the day.
Yes.
But this was the type of stuff like when Jimmy and I would talk into the nighttime, he'd mention artists like this and bring up these type of bands and all this early electronic. It was the other half of it. There was like a hip hop side of electronica, and then there was the UK side. This was the British stuff, and I always thought this was a little better. The stuff that came from the other side. A lot of airplay out of this. These were big. Might not have hit everybody for the people that are watching.
Oh,
We got it in Boston.
Yeah.
New York City got it. I don't know if respectively where you are.
We got it. We got it here. We got it good.
It was almost the underground. It wasn't like regular radio stations were playing it. So you had to go out and hunt this stuff down. You'd hear it on, we had an AM station, WILD, which is really cool, that played a lot of like P-Funk remixes and stuff, and had like that kind of, like you'd get like Numbers by Kraftwerk, playing stuff like that. So this got on, as 84, like when I was starting out. And this was probably one of the first records I ever bought myself, saying I need something that it's going to make people spin around.
Oh, Into Battle. That is so cool that you have that on record. We were lucky enough here in Milwaukee to get all that stuff on our Hot 102 station. It's like in regular rotation. We would hear Moments in Love. We would hear Beatbox.
Moments in Love was beautiful too. That was great.
Sometimes close to the Edit. What I found interesting was the first one I actually bought was Who's Afraid Of. And that's what I found at the record store. So I didn't know about Into Battle. I bought Who's Afraid Of, which is good, but I think Into Battle's better, in my humble opinion. The cool part about it was I was hearing tracks on there that were sampled in other tracks they did. Like the one that comes to mind was Moments in Love. There's that break at towards the end of it where they're going now. I'm like, what is that? And then I heard In the Army Now on Into Battle. Right? That's where that came from.
In the Army now,
like some old Andrews Sisters sample or something they were using on the Fairlight series too. It's like, oh, that is so cool, man. I love that. No, do you want to tell them who Trevor Horn was before he was Art of Noise?
I got him in production from all through the 80s, because once this was kind of like his pet project, but he was in the studio doing
But why is he? What's he most famous for?
He's most
Dire
Straits. He was Dire Straits '85. He was but
he was also Buggles. The Buggles.
Yeah, the very first song ever played on MTV
with
Video Killed the Radio Star.
That was Trevor Horn. Yeah.
I don't know if he had anything for the label.
He was the lead singer of Yes on Lonely Heart, owner of a Lonely Heart. That album.
No, he wasn't.
No,
he wasn't. That was Andrew. Whatever. No,
Trevor Horn.
Wonderful. Trevor
Horn was not the lead singer on Owner of a Lonely Heart.
He was on the board. He wasn't singing. I don't think.
No. The story is that I heard, and I never confirmed it, but I'd heard the story through people who were CMI freaks, was that the Into Battle and Who's Afraid Of album were outtakes from the Yes 90125 session. That's what I heard. Like they were playing around with the Fairlight. They came up with all these things, and some of it just wasn't usable for a Yes Rock album. So Trevor did the Art of Noise project with the outtakes. I thought that was interesting.
That is interesting. Because now if you go back and listen to it, you'll start hearing and be like, oh yeah, like those horn stabs and Owner of a Lonely Heart and stuff and all that.
There was another cat that was very involved in that. And his name eludes me.
Let me correct myself. Produced by Trevor Horn. Singer was Trevor Rabin. That's where
the guy who sang Roundabout and everything else that Yes does. Yeah.
Right. Well, the original was John Anderson.
John Anderson sang Owner of a Lonely Heart, didn't he?
Yes.
No, Trevor Rabin did.
Are you sure?
I don't know about that.
I'm looking at the Wikipedia on it.
But I've heard the song.
I thought John Anderson sang everything. Yes.
I thought John Anderson sang all that stuff.
Yeah,
not the swinging John Anderson, the Yes John Anderson.
No, yeah, let me get back to you on that one. I just remember Trevor Horn being involved in Yes.
Yeah, well, that whole thing was
all like, oh.
That was all Fairlight Series 2 see my jam sessions. And of course he was involved somehow, but yeah, that was, yeah. I don't know. Yeah, because John Anderson's singing on the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction, and it sounded just like the album.
Yeah, I was wrong again. Sung by John Anderson. So that's 2 strikes.
Not the guy who did Swinging, different John Anderson.
Right, different John Anderson.
Not Eating Chocolate Pie, John Anderson.
But guitarist Trevor Rabin, who also used to work with Trevor Horn, he was the guitarist that replaced, not Chris Squire, he was still with him, the bass player, Steve Howe. Because Steve Howe had gone to Asia, the band. He wasn't on Owner of a Lonely Heart.
But yeah, John's right, man. Into Battle with Art of Noise. If you're not familiar with that album, if any of you in this room don't even want to admit that you're not familiar with that album, but you're not, get it. Worth listening to it. It's dope. It's some of my favorite stuff. Like when I heard that, and it's a Who's Afraid Of album, but Into Battle's better. But when I heard that stuff, I'd never heard anything like that in my life. You tell me when the last time you heard something on the radio or otherwise.
Well, did you go see Breakin' in the movie theater?
Oh yeah.
Remember seeing that he's outside dancing with the broom, the Kraftwerk tune?
Yeah.
And you bought the Breakin' soundtrack and then it wasn't on it.
Right.
And you had to go find out who that band was. That's the rabbit hole that brings you here.
And by the way, beatbox, Ice-T is rapping over beatbox in the first club battle scene in the movie Breakin'. It's the song Ice-T's rapping over. When they first go to that club and they had that battle with that chick who they said was good, who really sucked. That's the jam they were playing. When they first go to there and Ice-T's rapping over it. Playing the MC there before you knew who Ice-T was.
All right.
Well, it's really good experimental stuff. The Fairlight,
thanks everybody. Good night.
Just so everybody knows I keep saying Fairlight Series 2 or Fairlight CMI. That was like one of the very first samplers. So what you're hearing are samples, and it's like it's got a sequencer in it, and you can make music in this thing, kind of like it was like the first Pro Tools. How's that sound? So, but it was 8-bit samples, so they sounded kind of rough. They sounded like they were played off of a Victrola or something. But that was kind of the magic of it, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. And who else used that? Peter Gabriel was a heavy.
I was going to say Sledgehammer was a lot of Fairlight.
Yeah, sure. ZZ Top used it for the Afterburner album. Mm-hmm. Jam and Lewis were using it on Janet Jackson's Control. all those cool horn stabs I'm a horn stab freak, and that was a thing in the 80s. Beastie Boys used that stuff on the new style. The horn stabs are in there. Yeah, it's cool stuff. Prince used it on Love Sexy. Prince actually used it on a lot of stuff, but the last thing he used it on, well, that's not true. He used it a lot on Love Sexy, then he stopped using it, and then he also used it on Emancipation after my ex-brother-in-law repaired his Fairlights that were broken. So he used Fairlight on that too, for samples in a lot of those songs. But it's a cool machine. I used to, well, my ex-brother-in-law had one, and we played with it. He had bought it. We repaired it and used it. It was pretty fun. We had a lot of cool libraries too. We had the Peter Gabriel library. We had the Trevor Horn library, like all those samples, so you could recreate the stuff. So, for me, it was more about like almost being a cover band. For him, it was like making new songs, but I wanted to just, be Leonid and Friends about it with electronic music and just like, how did they do it and figure that out and go from there. But I'm sorry, I geeked out in your pick, John.
It's all good. That's all good.
Who's next?
Who's next?
Is it time for the nerdy guy to pull up his phone
and give you some tell us about the 90s bands?
Yeah, something like that.
Tell us about Jagged Little Pill or whatever you got.
I am going to actually go to bat for a band that over the years, after this CD, began getting a lot of flack. But back then, this was maybe some of their better days. Nickelback.
I knew he was going to say that.
Well, when you said they got the black, I'm like, it's got to be Nickelback.
This is the one with How You Remind Me. This is the one that starts out strong with Never Again. It has Where Do I Hide on there, Moneyball, and also Too Bad on there.
He's laughing all the way to the bank, by the way.
Oh, yeah, no doubt. And I'm sure probably still big in Canada.
Yeah.
They're big down here, too, believe it or not. They tour well, and they've got staunch fans in the industry. Probably the biggest is Jerry Cantrell. Jerry Cantrell will literally go on stage with Nickelback 8 out of 12 shows on a tour because he's so pissed that people don't get it, that he's made it this little mission that if he's anywhere nearby, he's shooting into that town to get on stage. And I've seen articles where he's angry that people disrespect the band. And I'm like, rage on there, Jerry.
Sure.
I don't know what to tell you, dude. They're the winger of the 90s and 2000s. Like, I don't know what to say.
Up to the front of the stage, like, look at this photograph.
Jeez.
Good pick, good band. And even after that, they did put out a lot of hits. I mean, plenty of radio friendly, but they still got some edge. So
they're what we would have listened to in the 80s if we had them and drove Camaros and had hot girlfriends and had combs in our back pocket. It would have been a Nickelback summer.
Yeah.
We were talking before the show started about the difference between tape and digital. And it reminded me of an album that I think is amazing that was recorded recently on tape. So I this week have chosen Wasting Light by the Foo Fighters, made at Dave Grohl's house.
Yep.
I think it came out a few years ago. Released April 12th, 2011.
Oh, wow.
Doesn't seem that long ago, but a solid album. Butch Vig at the console, who was a member, the drummer of Garbage, has done a lot of production and probably most famously produced a small little indie album called Nevermind by a smaller band called Nirvana. And this was actually, there's a track on this where Chris Novoselic plays bass. So you've got Pat Smear, Dave Grohl, Chris Novoselic playing together for the first time since the band broke up or stopped. More importantly, it's the first time that Dave and Chris were ever in a room with Butch Vig since they recorded Nevermind in LA. So it's a solid album. The big hits off it, Rope. Probably Walk. Dear Rosemary, I Should Have Known, I think, is one of the best songs on there. I think one of their strongest. If you don't think Dave Grohl can write, listen to These Days. Just pull up the lyrics sometime of These Days. Dave Grohl deserved an award just for that song. I mean, amazing track. And really well done. And I mean, done with a smile. and they don't take themselves too seriously. And, it's a great album. They brought in, I believe, Frank Black to do some backup vocals. It's the thing about Grohl and the Foo Fighters is they're very quick to pay respect to people. If you don't believe me, go on YouTube and look up Foo Fighters and Rick Astley.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah, they've brought Rick out a few times, and it's funny.
Well, I was telling Stevie the other day that, oddly enough, I was watching this interview with Andy Summers from the Police.
Yep.
The other day. I didn't finish the whole thing because I had to get to bed. But something that he said that really kind of stuck with me was, he said, James Brown is dead. So now the hardest working man in show business is Dave Grohl. He works with everyone. He takes his time. He does long shows. He really goes out of his way to, bring it.
They just played Glastonbury under the name The Churnups. Like they had this huge logo called The Churnups. So there's this crowd of like 50,000. And, they were smart enough to do it between two big bands. It wasn't like they were only going to get 10 people. They had a full on packed main stage. And I think there was a little bit of a rumor that it was Foo Fighters. And all of a sudden they kept putting up the logo. They had the weird analog, like synth music come out. And then out walks Dave Grohl and the crowd went that crazy. It was nuts, but they give a good show and they appreciate the audience. And a lot of bands have lost that touch with the crowd. And like you say about Dave, he'll go tour with, Stones of the, Queens of the Stone Age as their drummer, or Stones of the Queen Age. That's an even better band.
Right. That's really
I've seen them. I may be their only fan. He's the only one that had seen them.
He's going to be that guy who is going to be like the new Paul Schaefer, who's at every award show, who's supporting every jam band on the award show.
Yeah, but you know what?
Rock and Roll Hall of Fame or whatever.
There's a part of an interview with him and he goes, we started getting some traction after this album. And I noticed every time there was a show, it'd be us. And we were becoming like, at the time, it would be like Britney Spears, Christina Aguilera, the Foo Fighters, Missy Elliott, and this one. He's like, I just figured we suddenly became like the rock act that they had to throw in, whether they wanted it or not. He goes, and I didn't really care. So we just kept showing up everywhere.
The 13th donut, we're just in the bag,
Yeah.
Okay, we'll be there.
Nobody asked for us, but we're going to be there anyway. But he's done stuff. I mean, he's a huge old school metal fan, and he had an iRobot project. And he brought back, Voivod, he brought back Venom, he brought in Lemmy, he did a Christmas track with Lemmy. Like he'll play, if you contacted him and had the right song and said, hey, Dave, I'd really like some help writing this and I'd like you to play drums in it. I think it's that cat that'd be like, hey, dude, I'm free next Wednesday if you can come up to LA. Yeah, I can.
Yeah, I kind of have a friend who's that guy too.
Come up around 7. Yeah, and I'll meet you at the studio, and he'd be there. No pomp and circumstance. He drives.
He's your friend if you want to be his friend. He's your friend if you're in the business. I'm thinking he's that dude. He just seems like that dude.
Yeah, he seems like he'd return every single phone call.
Oh, and by the way, you guys may not know this because it's really publicized locally, but he just did a homeless shelter. When he's not on tour, he cooks barbecue, and he's very.
I heard about that.
So he cooked barbecue at a shelter. Then when Taylor was still alive, Taylor had a project called Chevy Metal, and he would do these impromptu shows that would, attract 200 people because nobody quite knew what was going on. And it would be Taylor singing. Well, Dave would do barbecue for Taylor, and then Dave would jump on stage. Well, now you've got this all-star band because then it's like, oh, here's so-and-so from another huge band jumping on stage. And look, Ron Wood's here. And but he's that. I think he does shows that he wanted to see.
Yeah, I really
respects it.
I respect that from artists who do that.
I do too.
I want to do this because I want to do it, just because it sounds like a cool thing to do. I'm just going to do it.
It's.
I want to be that DJ.
Well, it's the classic Paul Stanley line. That was, I think he once said that, like, we wanted to be the band that we always wanted to see, but didn't exist. We wanted that show. So we decided to build that show.
They headlined Wembley, and Dave Grohl's like, for 6 months, I kept waking up in the middle of the night, like, what the F am I going to do? What are we going to do? We've got to make this big. His idea of big was, I'll play drums on one track, we'll have Taylor sing it. We'll do Rock and Roll by Led Zeppelin. Oh, I know. I'll get Jimmy Page and John Paul Jones to come on stage and play.
Yeah,
like if you're going to see the Foo Fighters and you end up with half of Zeppelin, really 3/4 of Zeppelin on stage,
get your money's worth.
Sort of a money's worth. Yeah, you're not going home bitching like I paid $100 for this.
I just showed up.
Played one song.
See Zeppelin.
I mentioned last night that the Foo Fighters are playing right down the road here on Saturday.
Oh, that'll mayhem.
And the kids are going for Harley's 120th anniversary here in Milwaukee. So it's Joan Jett and the Blackhearts with Foo Fighters.
That'll be huge.
And I was telling Stevie the other day, I said, you never know who else you're going to see on stage.
Oh, they always bring somebody up.
I said, you've seen Paul McCartney. You're 25 years old and you've seen Paul McCartney twice.
Yeah.
It wouldn't blow my mind if you saw him a third time on Saturday.
No.
It just wouldn't.
Well, where was the show that he jumped up? What show did he come on stage? And it was Pat Smear, Chris Novoselic, Dave Grohl on drums, and Paul McCartney on vocals.
Well, that was his birthday party.
That was the Rock Hall too.
Yeah.
Was it Rock Hall of Fame?
Paul McCartney inducted.
Where they technically did another Nirvana because I guess Paul McCartney played on that Sound
Sunday
City
Rain
project. And there's video of it. If you watch the documentary about the whole famous Neve board.
Smear is such an unfortunate name, by the way. I'm sorry.
Oh, he did it on purpose.
Oh, yeah.
He was a member of the Germs. He was him and Darby Crash. And I think it's probably one of the best punk guitar names you could ever have. Let's be honest.
Probably.
Jello Biafra and Pat Smear. Those are at the top of my list. Wendy O. Williams is a little bit distant third.
No, but well, yeah, quite. Yeah.
Lux Interior from the Cramps. That's a damn good name. One of the guitarists in like something Bouvet is one of the guitarists from Plasmatics.
Oh,
Bouvet. I mean, again,
that's names. Vaguely familiar. That's like Wayback Machine for me. I can't remember weird, but I
always thought Buck Cherry was pretty clever too. That play on Chuck Berry.
Yeah.
There's a DJ. This had to take him years to come up with, and I saw him. He's actually good. So don't send John Young at discjockeynews.com hate mail. Slid the address in, didn't I? But his name is Mord Fustang.
Nice.
Which the letters of Ford Mustang. I can't come up with a name, Mom. What do you think? What if you switched Ford Mustang and made it Mord Fustang?
That's it. It should be Chevy Camaro and switch the letters.
So, Howie, I'm going to cut Jay off and let you do an album.
Well, all right. I do have an album, and I really, really like this album. Everybody has voted it. 98% people like this album.
Rosemary Clooney's greatest hit.
From 1994, and it's called The Downward Spiral.
Oh, sure.
By 9 Inch Nails.
Yeah,
now they had yes. Otherwise, Trent Reznor. They had 2 singles off this album, and it was March of the Pigs and Closer.
Yeah.
But the surprise one that wasn't a single was covered by Johnny Cash. And he did Hurt, and it just went over the top. So that is my pick. Downward Spiral from 1994 by actually Trent Reznor.
Do you want me to tell you incorrect? Produced it?
His second album. So yeah, sure. Go ahead.
I don't know.
Uncle Al. Oh.
It'd be wrong if I gave you an answer. Just so I know that
it wasn't Trevor Horn. We know that.
Yeah. Eric, what do you got?
I also have an album from 94.
Okay.
It's a soundtrack, actually. That's sold over 12 million copies.
Wow.
And if I start telling you some of the artists, you guys are going to pick it out right away when I'm talking. Supremes, Bob Seger, Doobie Brothers, Three Dog Night.
You sure it's 94?
94 was the soundtrack. Let's see.
Was Forrest Gump? I don't know.
Harry Neal. There you go. Forrest Gump.
Okay.
I'm
thinking, is he writing a lot of Big Chill stuff? Okay, Forrest Gump. All right, that makes sense.
It was Forrest Gump. 32 tracks.
He actually have songs on there from each decade that the film was. Yeah.
Yeah, 32 tracks total. Take an hour and a half, a little over an hour and a half to listen to both sides of both. Yep. And there was all hit after hit after hit. Bob Seger's on there. And
it was a good one.
There's a lot of good tracks on that.
I remember buying that double CD, not because I particularly needed anything off of it, but it was just such a good compilation. It was a nice consolidation, basically. Mm-hmm. And if I needed something, I could just grab it and say, something off this. Oh, yeah, about that.
You want to hear something funny, though? Like the CD and the album both had 32 tracks.
Yeah.
I read that the double cassettes only had 31 tracks. I don't know what song they cut. Maybe they didn't have enough room or...
Yeah, they did that a lot.
Yeah.
Run out of space. I think the early CDs, if I remember right, it was like 72 minutes and then they went to 80 minutes.
Yep.
Yeah.
So you had the 90-minute cassettes. You could usually do an album per side on those. So each album was 45 minutes long, which didn't happen after about 90 on mini albums. But yeah, that's a good pick.
You know what the first hour-long CD released was? An actual hour full of music?
I don't know.
I believe it was Def Leppard. Pyromania, Hysteria.
Yeah.
And then immediately
63 minutes, I think it does. Yeah.
Immediately followed by Metallica, either Injustice or Welcome. One of those two. Like their first hour plus CD.
Yeah.
An hour. That's about the length of one Metallica song.
Stuff is like, I look at oh my gosh, I used to listen to Black Sabbath, Heaven and Hell all the time for hours. How? It's 38 minutes long, both sides. Like I didn't realize back then how short these albums were.
Right.
They weren't
quite short.
The first Van Halen album was under 40 minutes long.
Like 8 songs. Yeah.
Like that's it. Like
so they're 8 good songs. That was the thing. Yeah.
Then all of a sudden we hit the late 80s and there was like 15 new bangers from this band. It's like, wow, that's like 8 albums worth of material.
Yeah. Quality, not quantity back then.
Oh, true. Oh, look at Rumors. Short out. Great quality.
It's actually doesn't feel short when you're listening to it. To me, it doesn't.
No, but on paper.
Yeah. On paper, perhaps. So it does not feel like a short album. There's so many different things going on it. I have a pick this week. I was actually thinking about Jay when I picked this one. And it's a
Rinse.
I was on a crate dig and I discovered this, and it's just my jam. It's very avant-garde and it's a little repetitive, but I really like it. And it's this one right here. It's
John Cafferty and the Beaver. Oh, there you go. I have that.
You have that one?
I have the extended mix. If you go on side,
this is the 12-inch single.
Yes.
Yeah. One size 33, one size 45. But it's a jam.
And keep that close to close.
Sorry, that was an inside joke.
It's close by right here.
It goes beep.
Yeah. You guys are Pioneer really keeping Serato close these days, huh?
Yeah, well, we have to. We don't have a choice.
Okay, for reals here. I got an album here we never talked about. And it's an album that
actually you'd like that one.
Oh, that's dope.
Yeah, it actually has the effects on it.
That is super dope. I like that.
Yeah. Why do I have it? I don't know.
I don't know, but I'm taking it. Somewhere safe because it ain't gonna be yours for long. I don't normally do that, but yeah, I'm taking that.
Oh, geez, hold on. I just opened it for the first time. Yeah, you probably do want to take it.
Yeah, I'm taking it. Just put it somewhere safe.
Whatever it says is what comes up on the vinyl. So
don't sweat the techniques. Don't sweat the techniques.
Plus the numbers.
Yeah, bring that to AC with you. I'll put it in my
that's dope. Why do I have this stuff?
I know you shouldn't. It belongs to me. So the album I want to talk about really today is one that I think was very overlooked, and I really liked it. And when it was coming, I heard it was coming. There was talk of it coming. I'm like, whatever. And it came. I'm like, okay, this is pretty good. And I bought it and I listened to it. I'm like, wow, this is really good. I really like it. And it wasn't really my thing, but I dug it. And that is Michael Jackson's Dangerous. This is a great album. If you don't know it. Everybody talks about
Remember the Time on there.
That was, I think it was on here.
We can just go over what it's on there.
Well, okay, Jam was on there. That's a really good song. Why You Want to Trip on Me is good. In the Closet's really good. She Drives Me Wild. Remember the Time. Can't Let Her Get Away is really good. I don't like Heal the World, but I do have the 12-inch of that, and apparently it's worth like $300. Stop it. I do have it with the picture sleeve. Black or White, great song. The version you want is actually the single version. The album version has a lot of Macaulay Culkin dialogue on it that you don't want. So I like the version that you can get off the single. Who Is It is not a great. So Given to Me is a nice song. It's a real nice song. Will You Be There is another one of his ballad things.
Yeah, it's a big ballad, yeah.
But yeah, it's good. Dangerous isn't a bad song, but this is a really, really dope album. So if you want to just put something on and check it out, I would say 75% of this album is BSR certified cool. It's good stuff. Good stuff.
Very nice.
You ever want to get mellow some night and get lost in a track that you have to listen to like 6 times in a row? Listen to Michael Jackson's Stranger in Moscow.
Oh, yeah, that's off of History.
Oh, my God. The song is mesmerizing.
Whoever wrote that, I don't know who wrote it. But
I don't know who wrote it, but it is everything about it, from production to vocal to... That song is absolutely world-class.
It's got the best bridges.
Oh, love that.
It really is good. There's a lot of good songs off of History.
I'll literally walk around. It'll be on repeat. And just you hear that rain falling in the beginning. It's like you just talk about ASMR-ish type stuff. If you've never heard it, listen to Stranger in Moscow. Gorgeous track.
It was really good.
Yeah.
It was really good. Yeah, They Don't Care About Us was on there. The Earth song was on there, which I think was a really cool song, actually. There's a lot of good stuff on that album. Yeah, the Michael Jackson didn't end it Thriller. It didn't end it bad.
No,
I think that Dangerous was really good, and History, I believe, also was an incredibly good album. It was the greatest hits on one album, double CD, So you had greatest hits on one CD, and then you had remastered. Well, not stupidly, nothing added, just sound great. And then the other one was all brand new music, and it was solid. And that came out like around the time that he was hooking up with Lisa Marie Presley too.
And he had bad press too. That there was that period where his stuff would come out, and there would be such bad press going on that I think the product got slighted. You brought up something right there, and I know you have a topic. Could we get 5 minutes on a topic that you don't know I want to bring up really quick? Because it happens to me a lot today, especially with Tidal.
Okay.
I, for the most part, and again, this is just, getting older, I think. It started with Def Leppard, Bringing On the Heartache.
Yeah. Great song.
Which is on High and Dry. Mm-hmm. Great album.
Yes.
But then they did a greatest hits and added keyboards. Right. And this new phenomenon came up of remastering because artists realized, if it's 2014 remaster, we can re-release product, get new listeners, spend more money.
Right.
I, for the most part, don't like when I see the word remastered after a song. I find they don't benefit the original spirit of the song.
The album that did that,
I hate it, actually.
The album that did that, but I think they were actually presented as remixes or contemporary mixes. I don't think they were just presented as. I don't like it when they take that concept and present it as a remaster. If they present it as a remix or a version, that's different. Right. But if they present it as a remaster with added instruments, I don't dig it.
No, I hate. And they normally either cut it a little bit or they try to make up for a mistake that you fell in love with.
Right.
Every time I see this remaster crap, we remastered it.
All I want them to do when they levels,
do that. No. I want the original that I know has a silent point or has this, or after the bridge you do this. No. We got rid of that because people didn't like. No, I like
the only thing I want you to do is bring the gain up and eliminate the tape hiss.
And that's fine. I'm fine with that. But it's like if you really want to lose your friggin' mind, go search like YouTube or Apple Music or whatever service you want. Look up Here I Go Again by Whitesnake. There's like 30
radio edition. Yeah.
They're terrible.
Yeah.
They're absolutely hideous. Just give me I can't even find the original because it's a remaster. Now Foreigner is remastering. And what they're actually doing is they're letting the new guy sing. It's like, no, I want Lou Gramm. But they can get away with it by saying a remaster.
Because Mick Jones
re-recorded, that's different. Re-recorded is different than remastered.
Right, but there are ones that are said as a remaster, and I'm like, that's not Lou Gramm. I was there. I bought Double Vision.
Yeah, I don't like that either.
77, 78. I heard it. This isn't the same guy singing. Stop making, if you want to reinterpret an album, I would love if a band said, hey, everybody, we did this album 25 years ago, and we'd like to re-record it as a reinterpretation. We've changed the versions a little bit live. We'd just like to put this out as a throwback to our fans. Have at it, and I'll be the first in line to listen to it.
No, I understand your frustration.
Stop remastering everything.
Well,
Led Zeppelin did their Jimmy Page remastered their entire catalog back in the 80s when the band was gone. Late 80s, because my girlfriend's sister bought like this 4 CD set of Led Zeppelin, and it was the remastering by Jimmy Page. So everyone went, ooh, this is going to be great. And he started screwing with stuff. Stop it. I want what I want.
I think that, it's almost like it should come with a warning if it's like been changed that much. But when I think of a remaster, I like to think, remember those master editions you used to get of records? You could get the record, then you get the master copy of it. And it was like in a gold, like it had a gold outline on it. Some record companies did that. And that was like the really cool studio board version of it. That's almost like what I would hope a remaster would be. I think when Madonna's Immaculate Collection came out, it was like a greatest hits. And a lot of it was screwed with, but I think we knew that. They were like Shemp Pettibone remixes.
Right.
I mean, there were like 2 new tracks on there that were good. I mean, nothing on that album, not a thing on that album, I will play at the club or anywhere else, unless it's one of the new tracks, because I don't want to hear the Shemp Pettibone remixes anymore. I want to hear the originals. I'll play off the first album.
But that's the downside,
like
Brian. Like new fans are coming in going like, oh, wow, Holiday's 9 minutes long. It's like, no, it's not.
No,
it's not.
Yeah, they made everything sound like it was like from a Broadway play. I mean,
they started adding it was like everywhere. Like, wait, what is this? Oh, you looped that section.
Yeah, this is like
you're in trouble when
the show tunes edition of Holiday or something.
Yeah, ready to throw the vocal out in the car, like driving along. Like, how? Wait a second, where is it? Hearing instrumental. Where the hell's the cut?
Well, Jay, I'm agreeing.
Of the week is stop remastering and trying to sell it to me like it's the original.
Hold on a minute. Wait, just be careful with that. How about if you're going to remaster, don't add stuff.
Yeah, don't add
stuff.
Original and
clean it up and leave it alone.
Clean it up, but don't. Eddie Van Halen famously said there are mistakes on Eruption, and if you're a guitar player, you know them.
Yeah, there
are mistakes all over that album, and he said, "I would rather have a mistake get recorded." Because it's feeling. If there's no feeling and it's perfect, it's of no use to me.
Well,
I want perfection. I want feeling. I want timing. I want timing to go off.
I've told this story many times. When I was in Atlantic City and I was outside and there was, I don't know what the system was they had at Showboat, but it was out by the taxi cab stands.
Right.
They were playing classic rock and all of a sudden I heard Yes's Roundabout. In a way, I had never heard Yes's Roundabout before. And it was the remaster. But they didn't add anything. They just cleaned it up and they brought things out. It was almost like you were hearing it live in the studio.
And that would be fun.
Opposed to compressing all that stuff onto 2 tracks and dumping it out on an LP. That was cool. So I like that kind of remaster. I love that kind of remaster. And I didn't used to like that song, but I love it now because of the remaster. But don't add.
What you're saying is we bought live albums back in the day because that was a formula of its success. Band would put out 2 or 3 albums, maybe a live, 2, 3, 4 live. So you could count on it and you bought live. You wanted, Aerosmith live bootleg. You wanted Thin Lizzy live and Dangerous. You wanted Live After Death by Iron Maiden because you were getting the concert experience. So the songs would be a little bit different. And they might even have some cool audience sounds and you could feel like you were at the show. Mm-hmm. Hey, I think bands put out live albums anymore. I could look at John Mayer's catalog. I don't know if he's even done a live album because we don't live in those times anymore. But it's sort of like that era where now they're like, oh yeah, Kiss didn't play on live or, a live 1 or 2. We actually had, shut up. I don't want to hear that. Leave me in my past of enjoying an album. And that's where the remastering and everything screws it up. Damn it.
If I may interject, I think somebody that did it correctly was the Beatles box set. They had the mono versions, and then they had the other, the stereo versions. Yeah. And then their later albums, they did what Brian said was they got rid of the hiss. They didn't change anything.
You're talking about the leather boxes, right?
There was a $200 box set.
I have it. I have the singles one.
I have it. Everything they ever did.
They're a CD and they're gold, and they have, I don't know how many CDs I remember, but I believe they're singles.
I think
and they have a mono single and a stereo single of each one of them.
Yes.
Yeah, I have that.
But I know they also, like Howie says, they put out a box set that was just done in mono the way the originals were done.
It was mono and stereo.
No,
it was both on it?
Mono and they had the stereo version.
They were two separate CDs. One CD actually said stereo and the other one actually said mono, just like they did in the stores back then. And they were separate. So they had I have two copies of, what's that one song? P.S. I Love You. They had there were two of that, a stereo and a mono, but they were on separate discs and separate sleeves that with the artwork.
This is stereo, this is mono. Okay.
Yeah.
And if you've ever, and the reason I've always played in mono at every one of my gigs and set everything from the mixing board to the software in mono was because I did a wedding years ago when I didn't do that and everything was set in stereo. And I had a speaker on either side of the dance floor, and the bride and groom danced to a Beatles song for their first dance. And
they thought it was instrumental on one side.
All of a sudden, there was nothing coming out of this speaker, and I panicked.
Yeah.
And it was all coming out of that speaker, and then it would switch, and I would just hear background vocal, and I'm like, what in the hell is this? And it's
are you trying to say that you're not going to get on board with the new Pioneer quadraphonic mixer?
Oh, please.
Can you imagine Jay with quadraphonic sound? He'd lose his mind. That'd be hilarious. Does anybody remember quadraphonic here? Howie does.
I think I have a Doors record that's recorded in quadraphonic. I never had anything I could play it on.
Quadraphonic sound.
Yeah.
For those of you who don't know what quadraphonic is, it's a 4-speaker system. You're supposed to place them around the room. And on a 4-piece band, each instrument or member would be in an individual speaker. You're surrounded by the band. Your drums out of one speaker, guitar out of another speaker, singing out of another speaker, and a bass out of another.
That's quad. I had the phase linear preamp. And the preamp, and it had a little joystick. And you really could. You put speakers in every corner, and you could make it go around like that. And
my Uncle Dave had a quad system. Yeah.
Pink Floyd did that at the Dark Side of the Moon tour.
Oh, but
it was so expensive, but when they did those whooshing sounds, it would go around and you'd be like, where am I? But unfortunately, it was a format that the average consumer could not afford because they would have to buy 2 amplifiers.
It didn't take off, Howie. What years do we figure quad was? That was right around 70, right? Was it late 60s or was it 70?
No. It was mid to late 70s because it was
really okay.
Yeah, because Dark Side of the Moon came out in
73, 74.
Yeah, something like that.
Who's Quadrophenia? Right around the same.
And you had, the Who did Quadrophenia, and it sounded great. But the average consumer could not afford to buy 2 amplifiers and 2 extra speakers. And that's
my Uncle Dave's quad system was like a console system, like an all-in-one, with the 8-track and the record player on top. Had the 4 speakers, had the joystick, and I remember it had little lights all around the joystick. So you could the volume you could adjust for each one of them, according to what the joystick was.
You dial it in.
Yeah, well, I just can't see Jay getting on board with quadraphonic. He would ADHD out huge.
Well, have you guys heard Dolby Atmos?
Yeah, I was thinking that sounded like a predecessor to that, or Apple calls it spatial audio. And
we've had talks about that because, and the biggest thing holding it back is the recording. Like, you can't just magically, unless you get a processor, you can't magically make the sound do. Like, if you haven't enjoyed this, put on earbuds or headphones, go over to YouTube and look up 4D audio or 4K audio and close your eyes and hit play. And I'll give you 20 seconds before you got to open your eyes because you are tripping that there's stuff going on where it's because it literally splits it into 4 areas of your head.
Oh.
And it's crazy. But we've had
Rose was doing that for a minute for their headphones.
Yeah, we've had this talk with people years ago where we would be in Miami or LA or Vegas or wherever, and somebody would come to us as a company and say, we have this new technology, check it out. And it was a close your eyes in a room thing.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, wow. But anything's possible, but it's a matter of getting the gear. John, I mean, you more than anyone, maybe, or maybe Howie, Bose is a Boston-based company. I had friends that had a lot of money in high school. They had Bose in their rooms. They had like the 901 system where everything was angled inside the actual speaker.
No.
You'd have to move rooms around. You'd have to move the bed, the desk, the bureau. But when it was running well, you could stand anywhere in that room and it sounded amazing.
Yeah.
But it's
back
like
then we had bands that used the 901s as PA speakers.
Wow.
Really?
Yeah, and they were
Those
very successful because they were so small and easy to carry.
Those are big money these days on the resale market.
I would think so.
Yeah, they do. They made a 901 series for musicians to play out with. Yeah,
I was
you had Bose, you had Boston Acoustics.
Yeah,
you had Meyer.
Who had Clipped Heresies in his room as a teenager. Which
Clips
Heresies, the Heresies, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, you were rich.
901 actually
my brother, no,
9 speakers in it. 9.
Yeah, the 901 had 9, but they were all angled.
But
so, you couldn't just put it in the middle and be like, it sounds good. You had to maneuver it.
They had 8 3-inch speakers and 1 8-inch bass speaker.
The story.
And they had that port that snaked around on the inside that was made out of plastic and, would amplify it mechanically, basically.
My brother got those Heresies in Germany when at the PX. They had like high-end stereo equipment at the PX.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he went in there after a bender and went ahead and financed them. So he was paying them off for 2 years every check and put them in his, in the, whatever they call it, the barracks.
Does he still have them?
Yeah, he does. He came home from Germany and he bought, and this was a long time ago, he bought a 52 Chevy truck. And I was like 14 years old. And he said, hey, man, I got your first truck. So when you come down here, drive it, check it out. We're going to get it towed back for you. I was all excited. I was going to have this rust-free 52 Chevy truck for my first car. And for whatever reason, he sold it. And I got really mad at him because he'd promised it to me. So he came up one year at Christmas and said, well, I got a peace offering for you. And he gave me the Heresies. So I ran the Heresies as a teenager. I ran them all. And those were the speakers that I was knocking my mother's curio cabinet stuff off the walls, playing Beastie Boys Licensed to Ill. Because I had like the Kenwood integrated amp and I had the TAC deck and stuff. And the audio acoustic CQ or whatever. I had it all just tuned awesome. And then I had him in my first house. And when Stevie's mom and I split up, I was kind of over it. And I took him out of the house. One of the few things I took out of the house when I left. And he came to see me one day. I said, why don't you take these home with you? Do you want him back? So he has them in his living room.
I saw
he's looking for a set of Cornwalls to go with him because he's insane.
Antiques Roadshow. And they had this dude with the ZZ Top gray beard, long gray hair, and the headband. And when he was in Germany, in the army, he wanted a Rolex. So he bought one. And he had the box, the receipt, the tags, everything. He paid like $695. He financed it. And he's got every piece that you could possibly ever have. And the guy's like, this is a great watch, but it's actually almost one of a kind. The guy's like, really? dude's like, looks like he's half stoned. It's like, well, you got the white face. Like 99% of these came with a black face, and they only made white face for like 3 weeks. You paid $695 for this Rolex back in 1961 in Germany at the P or whatever. He goes, today at auction, an approximate estimation would be $165,000, and the guy dropped. And I'm just thinking, if you bought crap in Germany at the PX, get on Antique Roadshow or something.
Well, the crazy part, the crazy part is Klipsch at the time was built in Kansas. So it wasn't like this exotic thing. It was like an American company. But when after he had bought them, Paul Klipsch, the old man who started the company, went over there, and he was actually in the PX. And my brother brought his brochure in and said, "Oh man, I just bought your speakers. Can you autograph this for me?" And he does. And as he's autographing it, my brother says, "Yeah, man, I'm running them through my my Alpine 200-watt amp." And Paul Klipsch just goes off on him. "I designed those speakers to be 50 watts RMS. You're gonna mess them all up." This really happens. Very funny.
You know what his famous saying was? They actually made a button, and it said, "That's bullshit." He actually wore it. He was full suit and tie, the hat.
Well,
he had the big button. He goes, "That's bullshit," because it was the wattage wars, and he was like, "I can fill this room with sound with 30 watts."
Yeah.
And everybody's like, "Oh, no, you need 200 watts." And he goes,
"No, I know."
His button was like, "That's bullshit." And those buttons are going for hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of dollars on eBay right now.
Yeah.
Well, you know what, Howie? We should do a show some night where you come in as the expert that you are, because I will argue with people about, they'll say, "Oh, well, you got all these speakers in the garage." I'm like, "Yeah, I probably have like 10,000 watts of sound out there, if not more, because I've got about 8 speakers. So let's say conservatively 16,000 watts. I could take my EVs, my JBLs, my, Express 2, Express 1, all of them, plug them all in. And then I could go over and get a 50-watt Marshall head with a 412 cabinet or a 410 cabinet. Do you really think that I can't crush those speakers with a 50-watt Marshall amp?
Well, you're talking
in a room.
Watts don't mean anything. That's like you telling
me. But I'm saying, I've
got a new car. You wouldn't believe how shitty the gas mileage is.
No, but I'm saying
shitty.
Lids on.
But dude, is it a dump truck? Is it a
right?
Is it an Indy car? What is this thing?
Right.
Because shitty gas mileage, man. I'm telling you.
No. But I'm saying everyone I know is like, "Oh yeah, I just got these. I got 4,000 watts." I'm like, dude, it doesn't mean a thing. I'm like, I could go get a 50-watt Marshall head, and I could play. When I was in Boston, my buddy Eddie had a 20-watt Soldano head, literally this big, running into a Black Star 412 25-watt greenback Celestion speakers. I had it at 2. It was deafening. And I'm like, how am I taking 20 watts in a small box and it is deafening at 2? And he's like, "Oh, I've got like 5 guys that'll play, Orpheum style places. This is the head they're using." Because
Watts is not sound.
I know, but we think it is. I think a lot of
not. It's not kind of like if I told you that your blinker fluid was low and you need new muffler bearings in your car.
Yeah, exactly.
It doesn't mean anything.
You still use
thing.
SPL.
Although watts do exist, it's unimportant. It's like, every lighting is the same thing. They talk about how many watts an LED is. Who cares? What's the lumens of it? Watts is power consumption, not power output.
But I think it's that dumb thing. It's like saying 0 to 60. Like,
that means something.
So what? Yeah, but it does. But it's a relative measurement of something to get you to buy something. Like when the new speakers come out, remember when we went from 500, 600, 700 watt speakers to suddenly we broke the 1,000, quote unquote, 1,000 watt speakers. The next year 15. The next.
Well, do you know how that happened?
25. I'm like, guys, slow down on the wattage.
Do you know how that happened?
The difference between
exactly how it
RMS
happened.
and peak.
Right. Do you know what peak is?
For a millionth of 1 second, you might be able to get away with using this much power with this speaker without frying it.
Without catching it on fire. And do you also know that that's only a theoretical number?
Right. So it's actually
it's not even based on reality.
No.
Not even kind of.
No. My PV Impulse 200
sounds big and impressive.
150 watts. My PV Impulse 200, if I played a different song than my two JBL PRX that are rated at 2,000 watts, that PV was 10 times louder than the two JBLs.
My favorite thing to say to people,
it was genuinely 450 watts.
They'll come into the shop. I'm back to running a Maui 5 Go in the shop right now because I've got the A8s or whatever they are out on rental. So when people come into the garage and I'm listening to, oh, that's a really cool speaker. It's like, yeah, thanks. How many watts is it? I'm like, I don't know, and who cares? Do you like how it sounds or not? Is it loud? Yeah, it's loud. Say,
I got asked to turn down my DAS 15As, my first powered speakers that I bought in 1998. Do you know what the back of it said they were? 150 watts, 50 to the tweeter, 100 to the sub.
That's probably accurate.
Rated 150 watts.
Yeah, it still doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. I still
only power consumption, not power output.
Down a little bit. Just turn this down. It's a little loud with two speakers rated at 150 a side. So when I got into the thousands, my Yamahas I used for 5 years, I think those are rated at 350 and they were louder than the DAS. Then I get my first JBLs and they're like, these are 1,500 or 2,000 watts a side. I'm like, oh, wow. And my first gig, I had them both turned to 10. I'm like, okay, obviously this is a joke because I'm expecting these to be 10 times louder than the last speaker or 5 times louder. Mm-hmm. And I realized right then and there, okay, this 2,000 isn't a real number.
You know what this reminds me of a little bit? This reminds me of like telling people like, that Pluto isn't a planet. They're like, what do you mean?
It's a star.
It's not a planet. Well, no, right. It's not big enough to be classified as a planet. It does what a planet does, but it's too small. And there are like hundreds of these in our solar system. So it's not unique. This is one we found. So, well, it used to be a planet. Well, some people thought it was, but actually it's not. It's not. But they still want to say that there's 9 planets, but there's like 8.
Ask Neil deGrasse Tyson. I go with
what, ask him. He'll tell you.
He says I go with.
Neil tell you. I'm Neil deGrasse. Star Talk.
He's going to point to the pen.
Yeah, he is. He is.
I think we're at time. And it was a weird show, and we didn't really have a topic, but that's okay. That's what hanging out is like here.
But I think our audience now knows if you really want to do a good wedding, you need a 50-watt Marshall head, and you're fine.
Tonight's takeaway.
Yeah. And if you want to have a good show on a Tuesday night, you bring in a bunch of DJs with some kind of weird psychosis who just talk a lot, and it makes it interesting. I think it does. Oh, look, everybody took offense to that. They got quiet. Look at that.
No,
talking about me. Maybe not.